Tiger Timers. Our past president, Lou Kugler, past president and current board member, Bob Fisher. The rules for the family applause question and answer session are on your tables. Please review them. Only members may ask a question, along with our young Tigers. You have 45 seconds to frame your question and please no speeches. Also wait for the microphone to come around and state your name clearly. Rating the family applause questions today are your board members who are in the audience. Wendy Grassi, would you raise your hand? There you are. Immediate past president, Gary Serpinski. Board member Leonard. Your sheriff, Bob Terry. And the vice president, Bert O'Hara. Stepping the microphone is executive director, Monica Kyle. At this time, I'd like to invite your immediate past president, Gary Serpinski, to introduce the program.
I have the honor and privilege of introducing two of the media stars, one on television and the other in print media. Before I get started, I'd like to talk about the media market within the Tampa Bay area. Tampa Bay, we are the 12th largest media market in the United States. And if you look at the Tampa side, they have Channel 13, Channel 8. We have a great business newspaper, the Tampa Bay Times. On this side, of course, the Bay News 9, I forgot the Tampa Tribune or the St. Petersburg Tribune. Okay? And on this side, we have the Tampa Bay Times, which is the former St. Petersburg Times. Also, within St. Petersburg, we have the new media, which we have right here, radio.com. There's a blogger out there, I forget his name. He reports a lot of political news. But in today's media market, you need current, up-to-date news. You want professional journalism, professional reporting. And sitting here right next to me on my right and left are two outstanding media stars. First, from the St. Petersburg, or the Tampa Bay Times, Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper, we have Adam Schmiege. Adam's been with the newspaper for about 20 years. When Adam started, he started with the Times, back then it was the St. Petersburg Times. They picked him up in Pasco County, and they weren't too sure about it. So he covered the 4-H projects, the local courthouse, who's getting married, who died, and so forth. And kind of evolved out of that role. But there was something strange about him. He kind of dressed like, this baseball comic, Bob Uecker. Well, he had the Bob Uecker image, okay? And his hair all over the place. But in reality, we're looking at someone who is an award-winning journalist, according to the Washington Post, rated one of the top 10 political reporters in the United States. To my right is Bay News 9 Ruechel, very respected anchor within the Bay Area. In my opinion, the top anchor in the Bay Area. Al's been in the business 43 years. He's won 3 Emmy Awards. On a personal note, Al is a deeply religious man. He's very much a family man. He's married with his wife Jennifer. 38 years. They have 4 children. They have, I think, 7 grandchildren now. And he's very much a family man. But Al is award-winning. He won 3 Emmys. And he's just an outstanding anchor. I want to introduce our program, and we're going to talk about the election results. Thank you.
Let's start with the worst hair. I'll be quick, so we've got as much time for questions as possible, but I should start with the qualifier that if you are a friend of Bill Foster's, I have nothing to do with our editorial board, so don't blame me. In my job, we've got 3 big things going on. Just got through the city election. We've got the Bill Young race. Everybody calls it Bill Young's seat. It still does feel like Bill Young's seat, even though it's not. It's our seat. And then we've got Charlie Crist versus Rick Scott, which is going to be extraordinary. So quick thoughts on the Chrysler race. I think probably everybody in this room would acknowledge it's extraordinary that a city where people seem to feel so overwhelmingly good about the direction the city still has the incumbent, and I was surprised at the margin. It wasn't even close. And I think for people who have been in this area for a while, Rick Kreisman just really had, the secret sauce. This was the first time where we didn't have an insurgent candidate, somebody that made a lot of people, whether it was Kurt Singer or to a lesser extent Bill Klein or Dennis McDonald, that made people, Kathleen Ford, that made a lot of people anxious, made a lot of the business community anxious, sometimes said some nutty things that raised eyebrows. Kreisman didn't do any of that. That's why, Strike Committee Chamber, for instance, they endorsed Foster, but they were pretty passive about it. Next up, Bill Youngseat. I would encourage you to walk up to Bob Galtieri, who's not running for the seat again next today, and just say to him, right now, it's Alice Sink. I think it was inevitable she was going to clear the field. She's a huge name. I don't know how big the carpetbagger thing is going to be, how big of an obstacle that's going to be. David Jolly formally announces about an hour from now. He is a formidable candidate. Most people in this room probably don't know much about him. It seems like it would be surprising to me if the Republicans really do manage to avoid a primary, which they would dearly like to do. And lastly, Charlie District Scott is going to be the marquee race of the cycle. And you understand that it's going to be an extraordinary study in negative ads. It's true. We're going to see tens of millions of dollars in negative advertising. I had dinner with somebody on the Scott campaign just a couple weeks ago who put it to me like this: we've got really no choice. Our goal is to gut Charlie Crist. And that's what you'll see. So you've got a guy who's run statewide forever, a person who is an opportunist. People know it. They tend to like him. They have a sense of Charlie Crist. We'll see what tens of millions of dollars of ads. There's a chance that by the time it's over, Charlie Crist will vote for Rick Scott. Won't vote for Rick Scott. And I will pass it over to Howard Shaw.
I have learned a lot from this guy right here, I'll tell you. When I do a lot of interviewing at Bakersfield, which is one of the reasons I stay there, because I really enjoy the mind challenge of having all these topics thrown at me. And on Fridays is usually my interview crazy day. I had a day a couple months ago where I interviewed 11 different people on 11 different subjects in less than 4.5 hours. So I really enjoyed that challenge. But what's been fun about working with Adam is that I was always too polite with politicians. And particularly, I think that I did an interview many years ago with then about to be the governor of the state of Florida, Governor Graham. And I remember asking one question, and 5.5 minutes later, I asked the second question. And I've learned that there is a polite way to interrupt a politician to try to get the point across that the audience needs to hear. In our role at Bay News 9, we were very fortunate to have this partnership with the Tampa Bay Times. I love working with Adam because he knows all the minutiae. We kind of have a good cop, bad cop. I'm the good cop. I talk about things like what's your favorite color, and those kind of things. And then Adam goes, what about that $800,000 you absconded with? What's wrong? So it ends up being a good relationship because I think that anybody that's interviewed in our program knows that we're fair. And that's what we intend to do. And when we ask questions, my question is, I always give most of my questions, and I told Gary this, guess where I get them from? Aisle number 4 in Publix. When I'm walking through, I just keep my ears open and I just hear what the people want to ask. And I'm not particularly trying to impress myself with the kind of tough questions I can ask. I just want to know, hey, what do you believe? Why do you believe it? Why are you doing what you're doing? And are you kidding me? So when you kind of add that degree of skepticism, it makes everything work out really well. Our Political Connection show, the #1 rated political show in the Tampa Bay area, we started out just in the 11 o'clock time frame, expanded to 8 o'clock in the evening, and I can tell you that 3 out of 4 Sundays out of the week, we will beat the national morning programs. So we are very fortunate that we have a great following in this area. I'm also curious, how many of you are under the age of 50? Okay, 49 and a half. Okay, what is this? Okay. I'm just really curious because I don't have any observations about these races, but one thing that I am concerned about is that the growing cynicism toward politicians and toward the whole political process. Particularly concerned about this. We're talking to people, I don't know when you grew up, when I heard the word compromise, so basically that's how the United States came together. George Washington, as you remember, did not want anybody to vote who was not a property owner. what would have happened to this country had that gone through. So that the art of compromise has kind of become this dirty word, and I'll tell you, it's one thing that I always ask every candidate. Now, I realize this is maybe we're at my very just a little bit, is I don't understand the big deal between flip-flopping. I mean, I understand that, you know, it's like this ultimate sin, but if I'm standing in the middle of the highway and I've told everybody, you know what, I'm not going to move from this spot on the highway, period, no matter what happens. But if somebody comes at me 60 miles an hour, I'm going to flip and I'm going to flop out of the way. So those are just kind of some of the issues that we talk to the candidates as we try to raise. Lastly, I think when it goes back to Chrysler and the Democrats about why they seem to be doing so well lately is because they have really mastered the internet and the web. I can tell you that 24 hours before this election occurred in St. Petersburg, I got a personal note from Barack Obama, the President of the United States, through Obama for America, sent me a personal note reminding me to go out and vote in the mayor's race. Now, I signed up for all of the emails from all the parties, so I'm sure I confuse all these mass distributors of information because I can't figure out, where is he, which is good. But having said that, I think you're going to be seeing that as being a growing threat. Republicans just really don't seem to have their act together as much as the Democrats did as far as the new media is concerned, and I think Adam would attest to that. And it's interesting because for some reason this last presidential cycle, the most popular contribution was, guess how much? $3. $3. Every time a communication came out of the DNC, all they asked for was $3. Just $3. $3. Well, it may not seem like much, but when you have, 10, 20, 30 million answer with $3, it's just one of those areas that we, the public, are going to have to continually watch in terms of how the internet is being used. And lastly, I'm always perplexed by why in our society today, personality always seems to trump policy. I don't think that's a good trend going forward in the future. I would hope that our viewers are not, and listeners are not, what one radio commentator has called the low information voter. That's the part that scares me in our process, is that we need to have people that know more about what's going on, that ask questions, that read newspapers. I'm surprised how many young people don't even read the newspaper anymore. That's not good for society. And also that the internet came with the promise, we'll have all this wealth of information, we'll all be better informed. Well, you know what we all do? We all go only to the media that we agree with. We tend not to go to the other side. So in this quest to have a better informed electorate, I don't think that there's anything that makes that better than people just wanting to be curious and wanting to have a say in the way that they are governed. And lastly, what the heck does the city of St. Petersburg want to do with a pier? Can't you people make up your minds? I mean, really, that's the interesting thing in this whole debate about, well, what do you want? Somebody draws something out there, why were you really opposed to it? And then, of course, all the misinformation that was out there when the media was trying to divulge and explain to the public. The public believes what it wants to believe, and I'll shut up.
Thank you. We appreciate hearing from both of you. You both have provided a lot of insight for us, so thank you. At this time, we'd like to start our question and answer session. I'm going to let you each take turns. If you have a microphone, you can either sit there or stand up, whichever is easier. It might be easier to stand so everybody can see you. I know you're tall, but...
Hey.
Just say, anyway, Al, I'll let you choose the first question.
Oh, I get to choose. I have to ask?
How about right here? You're just close.
Hi, David Leonard. Question for Adam. You seem to have assumed that it's going to be a two-way race in Congress for the Joe Young seat. Isn't there room for a Republican candidate who has better name recognition, but perhaps not the financial prowess of Mr. Jolly? Without naming, maybe you could name names. Wouldn't somebody with great name recognition have a chance to be the Republican?
Yeah, and I think I wasn't. That's all. I think I wasn't clear because I'm assuming it's just Alex Singh, and I have a hard time believing if David Jolly is definitely in, and he is more. I have a hard time believing he'll be the only one. He's not a household name. He's got a lot of experience in Washington. He's got a lot of connections where he's going to raise a lot of money. But I do think we're very likely to have a Republican primary. You're going to see a lot of pressure from Washington because this is the race everybody's watching. You almost never have a district that is truly competitive like this one, let alone a district that has no incumbent running. waste time on a primary. And you're going to have some people very well that may decide, I'm not going to go for this primary, but I'm going to run for the regular election and in August when there's a real primary. Anyway, I do think there's a chance of another candidate. A lot of people have been dropping out like flies. Keep an eye on Frank Hibbert, the former mayor of Clearwater. He seems to be, as far as I can tell, the only one who's very serious. And Jack Blackfella has a knack for causing trouble and being mischievous. He seems to have a problem with David Jolly, so Jack Blackfella seems to be shopping for another candidate. So we'll see. Oh, yeah, next. How about Dave Zach?
Thank you, Adam. And this is a question for both you and Al. And to just get into a different venue, do you think in the element we are in today, with a lot of the shocking news I'm talking about, the mental problem, individuals who are taking guns into different venues, do you think that the news directors who are sending these stories out, are we providing too much news of this variety for families?
At Vegas 9, we have policies that were established very early on, which is called the crime guidelines. We follow those guidelines to the letter. By that, we mean we actually look at the landscape. I'll give you a good example. I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday. We had 4 overnight murders. And so we had to look at that and say, okay, you can't not tell people about that. But then after we had the 4 overnight murders, they wanted us to do an interview on the Dante Morris trial. So what we did was, we backed off on doing the Dante Morris trial because when you do so many negative stories in a row, people get the impression that that's the way things are. Now, I don't know about other news organizations. We do serve as a filter in one way or another. And we do have parameters that we follow as to what we will advertise and what we won't advertise. But I'm telling you, there are just some days where it just seems like it's a full moon and the world is going wacko. Now, I'll quote David Ruechel, who used to say this: 99.9% of the time, there's nothing happening in the world. The other 0.1% is what you see on the evening news. What he said.
I think he said it best.
Yeah, go ahead.
About Skransky, I have a question for you, Al. You said that Obama only got $3. It seems to me that somehow you seem to forget that in Benghazi, he did not tell the truth about that attack, and then he was flying out to California for a $30,000 contribution, and then also you talked about how well the Democrats are using the media. Why don't you say the media is defending and supporting Democrats? Because guess what? What on the Times will
Question.
okay. The question is, how come?
Well, I can answer the first part. You won't see that on Vegas 9 because we stay right down the middle on all those issues. It's not that we don't report them, but we don't report them with the vigor that, say, a Fox network does, or, on the other hand, some of the major networks coming from these other issues. Because we find that, as far as Vegas 9 is concerned, we are hyper-local. People want to see local news, and that's primarily what we present. Not that these other issues aren't issues that should be talked about in some light, and they are, and you can find out more information on those. But we're not trying to shield anybody from information. And the $3 things, believe it or not, because I talked to a bunch of Obama people, and literally somebody did a bunch of research and found out that the ideal amount of money to ask for people who do not normally contribute to a campaign is $3. I mean, somebody did research on that kind of stuff, so pretty shocking. You want to answer that?
No.
We didn't even get to some of the other female side because we've done all guys. Yes, thank you.
Willie Radowski, why doesn't the media go back to candidates and try to force real answers to questions rather than just take the sound bites?
That's a great question. And believe me, we try. It's not easy, especially when you're talking about a presidential candidate where they are in a bubble. where you really, very rarely do they take questions. Barack Obama very rarely gives press conferences, and when he does, if it's an hour-long press conference, he filibusters for so long, you're lucky to get about 4 questions out of it. And it's one of the things I've learned from Al and doing TV. You know, these politicians, you are trained to say what, you're trained to basically ignore the question and say what you want to say, and say your soundbite. And so one of the struggles you've got somebody saying, okay, you've got 6 minutes left, you've got 4 minutes left. Sometimes you have to cut somebody off and try to get an answer. And sometimes you look rude. You do it 4 times because the politician is basically refusing to answer the question asked. We should do better. That's almost the whole goal of a political campaign these days, is to not answer the question that you, not to only say what they want to say. There's a message they want to give out, and they don't want to stray from that. They want to get as little as possible.
Yeah, I agree with the same thing. And I think the other talkers want to ask some questions. Right over here. Your one question? $1.4 billion. That's Adam's mind combined income from our shows.
So my name is Lisa Hartman, and obviously as a high school student, we're the emerging group of young voters. I actually just turned 18 today and was the election by 2 days. So my question is, you brought up the fact that we really get information from websites. What do you propose that the media and press could do to bridge the disconnect between the younger generation and local politics that would facilitate a more involved and knowledgeable emerging voter pool, so that we could make more involved sort of decisions, which we would have more just superficial knowledge and be willing to look at both sides?
For people like you to run for office as soon as you can.
Well, I think, you get information from websites and Twitter and Facebook, but really, in a lot of ways, you're getting that information from the mainstream media. Right? What you're seeing on Twitter and Facebook is often an article that I wrote or a TV clip that Al did. So, what gets young people more involved and more interested in public affairs? It's hard to say. I think people have been asking that forever. It may be when your mayor starts reaching into your pocketbook and paying taxes, or maybe when the pothole is growing bigger and bigger, nobody's doing anything about it, or you can't get health care, or something like that. This stuff matters, and you'll see that more and more.
And actually, the more you have at stake in your own life in the election, the more interest you will take. And the reality is that people tend to become more conservative as they get older because they have more stashes of money that they would like to see actually be there when they retire, rather than having somebody say, don't worry about it, it'll be there, and then all of a sudden you get there, it's gone. So it's got to do with your own involvement. But I'm serious, you have to talk it up among your friends and say, here's why you need to get involved. And pick 1, 2, or 3 issues. Don't try to digest everything, but find a couple of issues that you know are important to you. Find lawmakers that agree with your position, work with them, get out there. That's how you keep people involved in the process.
How about
what is your I'd like to ask both of you, what is your explanation of the outcome of the Christ and Foster race?
Rick Chrysler won. I will tell you what other people have told us, because I'm not really free to tell you what my opinion is per se, because I'm not an opinionist and I'm not a bloviator. So I will tell you what other people have said. Other people, Chris Engler, one of our respected analysts, basically said that somewhere along the line, maybe it was the pier, maybe it was raised baseball, but those were 2 issues that seemed to need more direct leadership, according to them. And some of that direct leadership did not come forward at a time when a lot of people wanted it. Having said that, now that Mr. Chrysler is the mayor, he will get to see in detail more of the details about the financial arrangement with the Tampa Bay Rays. And as I said before, he'll try to find out, after 62 public hearings, what you people in St. Petersburg really want in a pier, or do you even know?
I wrote about this the other day, and I think it's, to some extent, it reflects how well the city is doing. The city, nobody can say Bill Foster is a terrible mayor, or that he's a bad guy at all. He's a very good guy. But people, I think, in this city has reached a point where they aspire more. decent mayor is no longer enough, especially if you've got an alternative. The Priceman campaign ran a good, cautious campaign where they basically said, I'm not going to blow up City Hall, I'm not going to do something crazy, but I think we can do better, and it seemed to work. Want to get some, let's go to the back table over there, the young lady with the glasses. Thank you.
Not so young. Marion Edmonds. As we talk about the congressional race, I wanted to ask each of you, what do you think we should be looking for as we decide between, or maybe among the candidates who are going to be running in this election? We haven't had to think about this during Bill Young's tenure. I never really had any real choices in the time I've lived in St. Pete. So what should we be looking for? What is going to matter in terms of our local presence, in terms of our representative?
Well, I would say this, and this would apply to a legislative race, a district also, that is competitive. If you're talking about a district that Barack Obama lost by 7 points, there's always going to be a Republican there. And if you talk about a district like this is a swing district. This is truly middle-of-the-road district. And so often we have these people, they will campaign, whether it's for local office or federal office, and say they're independent-minded, they'll do this or that, and then they get up to Washington, or they get up to Tallahassee, and they are terrified to do anything that goes against the leadership, that puts them on whatever committee they want or helps them raise money. That's sort of why Mike Fasano, Pasco County, is so popular, because he was a rare Republican that actually, he demagogued the best of them, but he did what he felt was right, even when it ticked off his leadership. So, we're going to see two very reasonable-minded people, I would assume, at least two, David Jolly and Alex Singh, who probably still pretty independent-minded. Well, let's really press them and see, well, what would you have done? Would you have been like every other Republican and been willing to shut down the government if you couldn't defund Obamacare? Alex Singh, where would you disagree, actually take a vote against Nancy Pelosi on a Democratic priority that you disagree with? So it's going to be tough, but I think you really want to see how independent are they, how much are they going to represent this ultimate battleground swing district as opposed to their party leader.
Yeah, and I would also say that the question that Alex Singh will have to answer is this. You're moving to Pinellas County. Whoopie-dip. You're going to live in Feather Sound. When did you sit in traffic on US 19? When did US 19 in front of your business get all ripped to shreds? When did your beach need to be nourished? Are you going to Washington because the Democrats need help in the House? Or are you going to Washington because you will do what Bill Young really did, which was look out for the little people? And he did a great job of that. I know there are some people that try to just say, he was as bad as anybody else about earmarks. But I'm telling you, the guy saved McDill Air Force Base. If it weren't for him, McDill Air Force Base, as we know it today, may not exist. So those will be tough questions that will have to be answered by anybody who runs.
Who, my turn? Linda.
Linda Lerner, this is for Adam Smith. Your article yesterday about the mayoral election gave many reasons why Rick Priceman won. You didn't mention the very strong editorial board support for him and a very strong editorial stand against Bill Foster. Was it not important, or are you not allowed to mention the editorial board?
Nobody's watching, right? No, I actually do think our editorial board has sort of been on a roll between Fluoride and County Commission, and they were pretty aggressive in this race. I was reading our editorials earlier in the day about how nervous he must be, because if Bill Foster had won, wow, they would have had a lot of visits from Bill Foster during the second term. I think they made a big difference. I do. I couldn't quantify it, but they were very rough on Bill Foster and stayed that way through the campaign, whether you agree with them or not.
Then you had a follow-up. Go ahead.
Why didn't you write it in the paper?
Space. I thought about it, actually. And I would add something else. That's an easy cop-out. Somebody says it's a space. I actually thought about it, and it feels like too navel-gazing to write about something we did. But just as an aside, I would point out, everybody thinks the editorial board dictates what we do. I would argue, just as a reader, that our actual was significantly tougher on Kreisman than Foster. You know, there were two big front page profiles. I thought Foster's was basically pretty positive and Kreisman's was pretty negative. So just goes to show.
Let's have a record of one of our new members here that's just joined us right here right in front.
We've all seen polling, Brian Lund. We've all seen polling where people are going to be disenfranchised, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you don't like your own elected official anymore. It's almost 45% of the country who want to see somebody else. Between Sink and Jolly, they both have been in politics, but one has served a former representative and one has been elected herself. How do you two see their political experience, one being elected and one being a former operative playing on the actual vote balance?
Go ahead. No, I really,
I think David Jolly, and I do think there probably will be another Republican, so we're not anointing him the nominee, but I think he will be able to say he can hit the ground running. Yada, yada, he's got Washington experience. I know that everybody's thrilled with Washington experience. He's also a lobbyist. That's how he makes his living. And lobbyists are, barely a notch above journalism in terms of popularity, so I'm sure he'll have to explain that.
next question, let's right up here in front. You've had your hand up quite a bit.
Terry Bryant. I'm concerned about, they said greatest influence on people taking our sides is teachers, professors, newspapers, television, etc., ministers, and what have you. And what I'm concerned with is writers, not so much some of the television stations and writers who are obviously biased in some of their writing. So when you talk about the Foster to the Crisis one, I take who wrote what. And it would be quite interesting if you would agree as to when you write, why do you write and how do you write? Do you write on facts or do you write on your personal opinion?
That's easy for us. I don't have an opinion. I have an opinion, but we are, believe me, Adam and I both get as much hate mail from the left and the right. But the one guy who wrote me the email that said that I had a wonderful looking unit on the air the other day, I just want him to know that this really is my hair. This is not a unit. Okay? Admittedly, most of it has been moved from the back to the front, and the last time I checked, it's still all mine.
I just thought you were talking about your hair. Everybody in journalism has, there's no such thing as unbiased. Everybody's got their personal biases, everybody's got their personal experiences, and you try to balance those out. Sometimes you hear people say, if they think Howard Schell's kind of a jerk, and they're writing about him, or Adam Smith's kind of a jerk, then they're going to kind of bend over backwards to be a little extra positive about it. I think in that case, two side-by-side profiles by the same writer. I think it's a smart writer who wrote what he saw, and was looking at the records, and readers are not stupid. They think this person is clearly being unfair in what they're writing, and they can dismiss it. They think he's making valid, he's backing up what he's saying, and they can pay attention. How about the young guy?
Hi, I'm Sam Goodrich from SAB. Hi. Seeing as politics today are very heavily partisan, how much do you agree with Mayor Foster's statement that the mayoral race this year moved away from a grassroots style of campaign and more towards a partisan race?
Go ahead.
I know his father, Sam Goodrich, dresses as garishly as I think the partisanship, there was a time, I talked to somebody, when I was trying to find out who was the last Democrat elected mayor, I talked to Ray Arsenault, trying to pick his brains, and he had everybody's party wrong going until recently, because people just in the city truly did not know what party these guys were and didn't care. And I think that really changed with Rick Baker. He brought Jeb Bush down right away, and he was a Republican. And I think that's, in a way, for better or worse, the campaigns got more sophisticated, more lavishly funded. And then I think this was the election where these are going to be completely partisan races from now on. And the Democrats, who sort of have failed at almost everything they do statewide, have had a lot of success in mayoral races, and they were all in on this one. And the Republicans a little slower to the game, and they were too.
I agree, exactly. Yeah, in the back, right there, thank you. It's very nice. Can I borrow some of that?
Hi, Kim Black. Thank you both for being here. I'm an avid watcher and reader. With all the attention on the congressional race and the governor's mansion, looking at our local races, do you think people will delete all those requests for $3 because they believe that politics are local and help contribute to our local candidates? Or will some squeak through on the ballot because people aren't paying attention in our upcoming races? We have school board, county commission, we have a lot of local pieces, but it seems like the focus is clearly on the congressional race and the governor's race.
Well, one of the advantages of having to focus on the congressional races and the governor's races is that more people will show up at the polls to actually vote. I mean, I'm still appalled. I spent a couple of years as a missionary in East Africa, where some of those nations were not so kind to people that tried to vote, so I'm always shocked and appalled, and if I could get out there and preach, I would, when only 32% of the entire population of the city of St. Petersburg cared enough about this race to show up at the polls. I don't know what will happen, whether the $3 will do this, but all I know is that it's always been said, all politics is local. If you got a pit hole in the road in front of it, if you take action to try to get it fixed, you'll get involved in politics. But if you step back and let the machines roll and let them appeal to your lowest common denominator, which is fear, then we're in trouble. Then the local politician is going to have as much trouble as the national politician getting something to stick to make a person want to get up and vote.
I just think it kind of depends. If there's something going on that people care about, even if it's not the most important issue, if there's something that looks like your county commissioners are basically going to ignore science, suddenly the county commission race is going to get a lot of attention. You're going to start paying attention to what they're saying. If the school board wants to do something drastic, you're going to have more people paying attention, as they always do with the upper level races. In some ways, those local races get more attention than who's the CFO, who's the Attorney General. Those are the races that they really struggle to get attention for, even though they raise a lot of money.
This will be the last question, please.
Go ahead.
For a female.
Tiffany Vigus. I'm not crazy about either candidate for governor, but with two such big names, what are the chances of someone else coming forward to run against Chris and Scott, and what would their chances be of actually having a shot at it?
Great opportunity for me to announce that I am running for state of Florida.
I think the chances would normally be really good, except if you have somebody that is, in the last election, spent $75 million of their own money and made it clear you'd be willing to do that again. It's not going to happen. The Scott people were very, very worried that he would have a Republican primary opponent, and so they kind of let it be known he's planning to spend $100 million in this campaign, and all the people that were sort of sniffing around at that, they just disappeared. So there's no way that's going to happen. I think an incredible person number one is a
And I just want to take a couple of seconds to thank you for those of you that didn't switch to Verizon, and for those of you that unlisted White House, and thank you personally, because I know that we our programs. We don't, yes, we'll make it a paycheck on it, but we do it for you. We do it for you, the voters that spend the time watching it. And I can't thank you enough for putting your trust in us. And I can tell you that Adler and I work very hard at what we do. We anguish, and if anything, because of our own personal views, you find out as a journalist, sometimes you tend to compensate on the other side. So when somebody's probably saying, why are you being so difficult on the Republican? Or why are you being so difficult on the Democrat? Well, because we tend to try to play devil's advocate, because we know those are the kind of questions you want answered. And we don't want the politicians to show up and just spend 9 minutes of our time going through their talking points. But thank you again on behalf of the White House.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll each have one of our Tiger Bay Club mugs as a token of our appreciation, carving up a politician for lunch. And though you're not politicians, you do step in the mud a little bit with all of them. So thank you so much for being with us today. I want to remind you all, December 6th is a new program. It is with Alex Sink and Jolly are two individuals, candidates for office for the congressional seat, so please come. That's also our election, so December 6th, remember to come to that. It's our annual meeting and board elections. January 8th is what we have tentatively set for our mayoral address with our new mayor, who will give us a state of the city. January 22nd, we have Mayor Baker and Mayor Iorio, former mayors, will do a beautiful program for us. On February 5th, we have our legislative preview prior to our session in Tallahassee to see what we have coming up. And then our exciting annual event with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Daniel Ruth will be at the Mahaffey Theater. So where's Joe Jimenez? Thank you so much for making that happen for us. We're very excited to be there. And on March 7th, Congresswoman Kathy Castor, Vice President Ardo O'Hara, I cannot thank you enough. You have put together a skillful set of programs for this year and all the way into next year. And now what we're waiting for is big surprise, Marion Edmonds. Come on up. Just for your information, people often ask, what was the question? She asked, what should we look for in our congressional candidates? What questions should we ask? What should we look for? Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day.